Okay, this is a movie that I'd heard of for years and I'd never seen, and I was finally sort of pushed, spiritually pushed to see this, listening to the Mike McPadden, the dearly departed Mike McPadden podcast, 70 Movies We Saw in the 70s. This from 1976 is 2 Minute Warning. This is a movie I always would get confused with Black Sunday, not the Bava film, but the film with the Goodyear blimp hovering over a football stadium. Those were the two big 70s sports arena disaster movies. 2 Minute Warning happens to be the one I just watched. So basically, it's structured like any 70s disaster movie. You have an all-star cast that you get to know slowly over the course of the film, so that when everybody starts dying, you care. That's what I always said about movies like, Towering Inferno and Avalanche and all that. There was always, it was like the same template they used for all these. There was this little drip of something bad that's about to happen, or something bad that's being planned to happen, and otherwise it's just one big soap opera, and then at the end everybody dies and you care because you sort of were invested in their stories over the course of the first part of the movie where not much happens. 2 Minute Warning is like that. Basically, 2 Minute Warning is some sniper, you don't know who he is or why he's doing what he's doing, you don't even see his face until the very end. Some sniper just decides to go to the LA Coliseum where the Olympics were in '84 and set up in this tower with a shotgun, not a shotgun, with a sniper rifle. And at some point he's going to start shooting people. So there's this tense drama of, is he going to be found in time? Is he going to be stopped in time? What havoc is he going to cause? And who's going to last to the end of the movie? The all-star cast in this includes Charlton Heston as the local police guy, to use a technical term. John Cassavetes as the head of the SWAT team, who one of his underlings is Larry Minetti, who was on Magnum several years later. You have Brock Peters as a guy who is one of the maintenance or security guys at the Coliseum. You have Martin Balsam as head of security at the Coliseum. You have Jack Klugman as this guy who's in debt up to his above his eyebrows and who will be killed if he doesn't win big at this game and pay off his debts. You have Bo Bridges, and many other recognizable faces. David Janssen, Gena Rowlands. I always said it's like a package deal. Gena Rowlands and Cassavetes was sort of like Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, or Hume Cronyn and Jessica Tandy. If one of them shows up in the movie, you figure probably the other one will eventually. And then maybe there was a bulk discount if you hired the couple together. I don't know. And so, yeah, it's really well done. It's a lot of football, but it doesn't really focus on that. Really well shot, and it's just a cool 70s thriller. A lot like, it'd be a great double feature with Targets. Very, very reminiscent of Targets, actually. And once the violence erupts, which is really only toward the end of this movie, it's really brutal and nasty and like shocking how violent it is for somebody who's shooting people. And it really does come down to who's going to get out of this. Are they going to stop the guy, and how? One thing I really loved about this was that for fans of Cinemax After Dark in the 90s, or cult sleaze action movies, Andy Sidaris, who made a bunch of fun movies, he sort of had a resurgence in popularity lately because there was a re-release of I think it was Hard Ticket to Hawaii was in theaters again recently. And Mill Creek has been releasing Blu-rays of a lot of his movies, like Picasso Trigger and Malibu Express and Do or Die and Savage Beach. And if you know any of these movies, you know why you like these movies. Anyway, Andy Sidaris had started off as a ABC sports director, and he plays himself basically in this movie. They keep cutting back to the control room who's covering this movie, this sports event, which is essentially, I think, supposed to be a championship playoff or the Super Bowl, but they don't call it that. But it's funny to see Sidaris basically doing what he did for many years. I think at this point he had made like, I think, one film at this point. I think he had made Stacy, maybe another one at the point that this film came out. But he was still predominantly a TV director. Anyway, it's a really, really fun thriller. And Shout Factory has a very nice edition out. It's got a nice interview with the director. And it has a really interesting special feature, which is actually what got me over the hump to buy it. Back in my day, when movies aired on TV, there'd be stuff in them that wasn't in the movies when they were in the theater, and wasn't necessarily in the movie if you got it on any form of home video. If you know Blazing Saddles, the whole Candygram for Mongo and that sequence. Whenever I saw that movie on TV, Cleavon Little's character did a few things to try to trap or defeat Mongo. In the theater, it was just one. When I saw Police Academy 2 on TV, there was a bunch of stuff in there that was not in that movie when I had seen it in the theater or on video or on HBO. So it was common at the time for deleted scenes to be put back into movies to help pad them. Superman the movie was another example. There's a bunch of stuff in that was only in the TV version. That was very common for networks to either ask for more to be in there or to say, you really can't have all this nudity, profanity, and violence in the network version, so you got anything else to fill out the time? Basically, the story with 2 Minute Warning is that NBC didn't want to buy, I think it was NBC, didn't want to buy the film from Universal for TV broadcast because it was too violent and the tone was too ugly. So what happened was 40 minutes of new footage, 40 minutes, that's half of some movies, 40 minutes of new footage was shot to pad this movie out so that it could get a 3-hour time slot. That new footage was not shot by the director. It was offered to the director and he looked at the script and he's like, this is awful. No. So somebody else put it together and I was very excited to see this. I'd heard for years that it was a substantially different movie, like the whole plot was changed. And I watched it the other day and yeah, it's like a different movie. It's presented on this Blu-ray in standard def. I was a little disappointed in the quality of that. It really kind of looks like somebody recorded it, well, clearly, somebody recorded it on tape from TNT at some point with the old TVG in the corner and the TNT logo once in a while. It kind of looks like, somebody recorded it from TNT and put it on YouTube, and that's what's on this. They say it's in standard def, but to me, standard def doesn't look bad on the giant HD 4K set I have. To me, low-res YouTube looks bad on that. At any rate, still happy to be able to see this version. I just had hoped that maybe they got it from the Universal Vault and not from somebody's videotape collection. So basically, the retooled version of 2 Minute Warning is about an art heist. Like, you see most of the original opening credits to 2 Minute Warning, and then it becomes this other thing. It's all this footage you've never seen before. They did get Heston back for a couple of bits and pieces, but otherwise it's a different cast. Joanna Patet is one of them, and one or two actors you might recognize. Rossano Brazzi, I think, is one of them. Could be wrong. And it's basically these people planning an art heist and duplicitousness. And the idea is that the art museum that they're going to rip off, the collection they're robbing, is in a museum across the street from the Coliseum. And the sniper in the TV version is part of this team who's going to go there to create a distraction. So the police all rush to the Coliseum for this sniper and pay no attention to the heist that's going on across the street. So you've totally changed the whole meaning of the film. You've dropped tons of the character development that you had before. You still see some of it. You see abbreviated versions of some of it, but very, very little. And I'm watching this version and I'm like, I'm about an hour into this and I've barely seen any of the movie that I know as 2 Minute Warning. And it really, to me, I don't know how it would play in reverse. Like if you saw the TV version first and then the theatrical cut, how it would play. But for me, I'm thinking this has killed all of the suspense about the guy up there shooting, because you know who it is and why he's doing it, and that he probably isn't really going to kill anybody. You don't really get to know all the characters. We're cutting to them in the stands, but they're just like random people now. And just all the tension that the original film built is totally gone, because you're looking at this, what feels like an episode of like I don't know what, Matt Houston or something, or some 70s equivalent, like a Harry O episode or something. David Janssen is there. And it's just like, what's going on here? So it's really interesting to watch. And I always love it when the extra scenes for TV or the TV versions are included on Blu-rays or DVDs. It's not done too often, but it's kind of cool. Like famously or infamously, Halloween, when it aired on TV, had a bunch of extra sequences that were shot during the making of Halloween 2 to sort of pad out, but also sort of change the trajectory of the movie a little bit. So it's cool to be able to see this. So if you've never seen 2 Minute Warning, I really highly recommend it. It's a really solid thriller. If you have seen 2 Minute Warning, it would be very interesting. I'd love to know your opinion on the TV version, because I watched it and I'm like, what is this? It just makes this feel like kind of bland TV as opposed to this really tightly tense movie that played in the theaters. So at any rate, out on Blu-ray via Shout Factory, it might be Shout Select, I'm not sure. Shout Factory, at any rate, the parent company, is from 1976, 2 Minute Warning.